Welcome back to the shop. My name is Ethan. This is Blazing Ember Forge. Today we are fixing a problem with these two products using a 1x4. Let's go. So the problem with both of these products is this little fishtail right here. On this one it's left plain, and on our skewer it's a little scroll right there. And the problem with that is I'm doing those by hand, which is a problem because it puts it on the edge of getting kicked out of my product roster because it doesn't fully fit within my product design requirements, which is minimal hand forging. So a small fishtail like this might take about 10 strokes. That sounds fine, but in a batch that's about 1,000 strokes and about 2,500 pounds that I don't want to lift just to get a little flat spot. For reference, we're talking about just a little bitty flat like that. Now I haven't been able to forge those in my power hammer because I pretty much just have flat dies on there, which means that we need another die that can create that taper. After taking some rough measurements, I decided that I wanted the footprint to be about 1.5 by 2. The 2 inches reaches all the way across my die, and the 1.5 makes it a pretty versatile width. Then we simply had to find out how much our taper was going to be. So I did a test piece by hand like I've been forging the other ones, and instead of trying to figure out the angle, I just determined the difference between the thicknesses here and here over the length, which could tell me the angle, but it's not necessary. So the wood really just helps me visualize how it's going to look and work on the power hammer. So you can see this was my first one, and I put on way too much roundover. For some reason I thought that would be necessary, and as soon as I did it, I thought, wow, glad I didn't make that out of metal. So we've got this guy with just a slightly increased roundover here at the edge, and then let's go ahead and check and see if we got our degree of taper right. So we're going to hold it on there about like that, how it'll be when you're forging, and check it with our calipers. So we're looking at about 0.83, about 0.83 as well. Then, using this as a real-world example, we could pull up our notepad and find out how much volume we need, adding about 5% for scale. So here we've got some 2-inch 4140. So that we can cut this on the bandsaw, we're just going to tack it onto this angle iron. So it's captured on 2 sides and will be pulled into the cradle thing here, whatever it is that we're making. Okay, good enough. Move that one against it. Okay, this guy's going to continue to cool. While it does, we're going to make the mount that it sits on that we can put in our die saddle. Okay, so we got here is just some angle iron and our mounting plate. Just going to tack it and see how she fits. Everything in the shop is the hammer. As you can see, we've got a bit of lift, but it is quite square with the length of the dies, and that's the only thing that will be very hard to fix. Okay, so here's where we are right now, and before we begin polishing the surface and taking off the corners, adding our little round over, we just want to make sure that our slope is correct. So I used our test piece and calipers, and we're within about 2/100ths of an inch. So pretty good. We're going to keep going. Okay, so we can use 2 sides of this. That will let us have a nice 2-sided reference. Then once she's tacked, we'll get plenty of heat on there in the forge, so we get a nice deep penetration. Okay, it's a new day. I realized I might have screwed this up last night at the end of the day. I just used a little squeezy clamp on there, so when I tack the first side, it may well have lifted up on the other side. If there's a little air gap under there, when we start smashing it with the power hammer, the welds are going to crack, and it's going to go flying off, but we're going to give it a go. So let's get some good preheat in this, and then we'll full weld it on there. Woo-wee. Toasty. Looks like a really good weld though. Should stay strong. Boy, I would love a TIG welder. Okay, so one of the reasons that we took those cycles is that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 different kinds of metal here. So we want to relieve as many stresses as possible before we dunk it in the water. This tool steel is supposed to be water hardenable. This is probably a terrible idea. So hopefully something will explode. Sometimes the extra scale keeps the water from hitting the surface, and so it doesn't get hard and fast enough, blah 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 blah. Let's get some heat. Okay, so we've cut through what should be most of the decarb layer here on our similarly prepared mild steel. Grabs quite a bit, has a pretty dull sound. A little better sound there. It definitely still grabs, but I think we'll temper it and see how it holds up. All it needs to survive is having some stainless steel slammed into it with a 70-pound ram, so nothing too crazy. So now we just need to temper it. I think we're going to stack these in the forge, get them hot, and then put our die on top of those and wait for the heat to soak up from the bottom. Obviously going to turn the forge off. Let's do it. Just want to soak the heat up off that plate. So we're letting this soak up from the bottom because we want the whole thing heat treated, not just the top if I were to blast it. Obviously an oven would probably be ideal for this, but I can use my little thermometer. We're around 200 degrees right now. We're going to go up till that block on the top is about 400. Just check often. Get some nice color on there. May have just screwed that up. too bad of a taper. A little shorter than I may normally do, but we'll see. I'd say we could probably lose a little material on this top end. You can see it didn't quite touch as much down here. So that's why we didn't get the full length on our taper. But it held up well. It's not a big dent. It's just a smear. So we'll make those adjustments, and I think, we'll see. That may make all the difference. Okay, here's the test piece that I forged by hand. Here was our first test on the die, and here was our last one. Got a little bit wider, a little bit longer, so let's match it up to the one we did by hand. Okay, so that is good. What we want is great. That transition there needs to be smoothed out a little. So I think I'll finish my grinding, and then we'll see if we can't work that out. Okay, I think I'm quite happy with that, so we're gonna put some sealer on here. Buffed it up to the same nice satin sheen I like to do all my tools like this at. Make sure that your work has a very smooth finish on it. Just use a 3M conditioning belt, the fine grade. Sand it up to about 220 before that. And it usually looks quite nice. I left a couple scratch marks there at the edges, but shouldn't be a problem. Now, yes, that's a sock. We ended up with these being about 1 7/8, which we were looking for between 1 3/4 and 2 inches, so I'd say we succeeded. They're very uniform. They have a nice even flow on the sides here, which is a little harder to get by hand. Obviously not impossible, but it's just a lot of effort. So I'm happy to be able to get a nice repeatable product for you guys. Now, a lot of you probably already realize that that will not work for these because it's just a different taper. But that's okay. This was kind of a stepping stone. On this one, I actually want to make a tool that I can use to flatten that, to put that little curve in. If you watch my video where I make these, that'll make sense. And then we'll also have a stationary fuller that we can use, so we can just do it all with one die and one heat. Now, is this the best or ideal heat treating method? Definitely not. Does it keep working? Definitely yes, so sue me. Leave your hate mail in the comments. Look forward to reading all about it. I think that about wraps it up for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you learned something. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments and I'll get to them as I can. There will be links for the skewers and the hooks that I talked about that I make in the description. There will also be links for other stuff that you saw me use throughout this video. So you guys take care and forge on. I'll see you on the next one. Probably could have taken this welding hood off. It's a little sneak peek of the material for a project I'm working on, and apparently I will not be able to move around my shop until I finish it. Oh, it's copyright.